truth about peptides is they've been around for a really long time. People who I consider to be the original biohackers, and those are bodybuilders. You'll run across ex-bodybuilders in this space who are like, oh my God, I've been using peptides for 20 years. Like, what do you mean 20 years? Like, how is that possible? But they've been around for a really long time. To define what a peptide is, because very often people will reach out to me and say, oh, I take collagen peptides.
Right.
I put them in my coffee. And I'm like, that's amazing. That's not exactly what we're talking about. Because they're so tiny, they can get it across the cellular membrane. They can get into the nucleus of the cell, which is where they bind to the DNA and act as epigenetic switches. So they literally flip switches on DNA that upregulates the production of protein. One of the things he kind of figured out pretty early in the game is there's these little tiny proteins that are found in every life form. Plants, animals, and humans, every life form that he looked at. Typically in science, when you find something that's preserved across all species, it's important. They originate in the body. They are not doing anything for us. They're enabling our body to do what it does. It can help with healing musculoskeletal injuries, healing any part of the GI tract, for stimulating wound healing, for burns. It's got applications for the eyes, heart, cardiovascular system, brain.
This one peptide.
This one compound
does all of this. What are the ways to consume or to use peptides?
The most efficient way to take a peptide is by
Nat Niddam, welcome to the 𝘎𝙬𝙆𝘾𝙆𝙄𝙉𝙃 podcast.
𝘎𝙐𝙬𝙆𝑃. Thank you so much for having me here. I am so excited for this conversation.
I was thinking about when we first connected, and it was in West Palm Beach at a mastermind we were at.
Oh my gosh.
August of 2021, I believe it was. It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, we were speaking at this event, right, Biohackers event. But I had heard about you from, I don't know, maybe social media before that, and then we finally got to interact in person. And I love the work you're doing. I love who you are as a human being. We got to spend some time together at Dr. John's event with our crew. And now we're here in person. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see we're both matching with our 𝘎𝙧𝙀 quantum necklace here. I got the infinity block here in the middle. You know, in the biohacking space, you know this, but those who are listening to the podcast, getting into biohacking, or if you've been studying biohacking, you're hearing the word peptides. And it's coming up over and over and over again. It's probably one of the hottest topics in the biohacking space. If not, it's going to be very, very soon. Why has it become so popular? And I know you're a master of understanding how this works. Your lecture at Dr. John's was fantastic. So why has it become so popular, Nat?
I think it's just bubbling up into the mainstream. I mean, the truth about peptides is they've been around for a really long time. And the people who are the real aficionados of the peptide world, or who were, are, believe it or not, the people who I consider to be the original biohackers, and those are bodybuilders, right? That community of people that will stop at nothing to get their body to look and perform in a particular way. And so, you know, you'll run across ex-bodybuilders in this space who are like, oh my God, I've been using peptides for 20 years. I'm like, what do you mean 20 years? Like, how is that possible? But they've been around for a really long time. And so, you know, to define what a peptide is, because very often people will reach out to me and say, oh, I take collagen peptides.
Right.
I put them in my coffee. And I'm like, that's amazing. That's not exactly what we're talking about. And of course, there's a big kerfuffle right now about, do those collagen peptides even do anything? So, I mean, who knows? I'm not going to get into that. But the peptides we're talking about, first of all, let's define what a peptide is.
Yeah.
A peptide is a small protein. And by definition, a peptide is 50 amino acids or fewer in length. And so an amino acid is the building blocks of protein. And so they get arranged. And, you know, we have proteins in our body run the show, as you guys, I'm sure. I mean, this man's work is phenomenal. So I know you're educated about it. But basically, they could be thousands of amino acids long, folded into these crazy origami shapes. So just to expose certain landing sites and binding sites. The peptides we're talking about are 50 amino acids or fewer in length. And there's a subset of these that I think we're going to touch on as well today, that are the bioregulator peptides that are only 2 to 4 amino acids.
Very tiny.
Like infinitesimally small. So what's really interesting, and so I will say another thing. I recently met a doctor from Russia who, you know, these bioregulator peptides really come out of Russia. There's a doctor, professor, researcher in Russia by the name of Vladimir Kavinsin who has been studying them for the last 40 years. And he named this category of peptides bioregulator peptides because they have the ability to because they're so tiny, they can get it across the cellular membrane. They can get into the nucleus of the cell, which is where they bind to the DNA and act as epigenetic switches. So they literally flip switches on DNA that upregulates the production of protein. But what this gentleman explained to me, and it's true, is that a lot of the longer chain peptides that we talk about, like the BPC-157, the thymosin beta-4, and I'm going to apologize right now. The nomenclature of these things is absolutely
seriously.
It's horrible. But those guys, they typically are signaling molecules. They will typically bind to receptors on the cells, but a number of them do have the ability to upregulate genes as well. They just don't do it quite in the same way because BPC-157 is a much longer chain of amino acids. It's not going to be able to get into the cell in the same way. So it's going to do it through messengers. Interesting.
This Russian gentleman, you lectured about him in Sarasota, friendly-looking guy, right? I saw the image. I remember when you said that. Yeah.
Very stern.
The backstory about that. Can you share real quick his backstory? Like he was tasked to do something that was.
So he was a young doctor in the military, in the Russian military, and his superiors came to him one day and said, "Vladimir, I'm just imagining. I don't actually know. Vladimir, the truth. Our cosmonauts and our nuclear submarine troops are coming back a mess, right? So these are people who are exposed to radiation. It accelerates their aging, right? And so they said to him, we need you to figure out a way to turn the clock back on these people. You got to make them better. You got to fix them." I'm sure this kid is sitting there going,
okay,
I'll get right on that. Just give me 10 minutes. I'll be back.
Right.
So, and actually, interestingly enough, the work that my understanding is that kind of the work he sprungboard off of is Pavlov's work. And, if you look at Pavlov's work, the BPC-157, that other peptide that we talk about, gut healing and all that stuff, that was in that gastric juice of that dog. Well, that experiment that he did with the dog, which sounds horrific for the dog. I apologize. But and then one of his people drank the gastric juice. It's just the weirdest story ever. I mean, people do strange things now, but they did really weird things then.
Very weird things.
Anyway, so bottom line, is that Cavinson kind of went to work, and one of the things he kind of figured out pretty early in the game is there's these little tiny proteins that repeat, that are found in every life form. They're present in plants, they're present in bacteria, they're present in animals, they're present in humans, they're present in every life form that he looked at. And typically in science, when you find something that's preserved across all species, it's important, right? And that got his attention, and then he started digging into it. And then that's how he kind of went down this rabbit hole and came out. And, he's done extensive research they started with animals, they've done computer modeling and a lot of research on humans to show that these bioregulator peptides have really profound effects on human systems.
Very cool. So humans make peptides, animals make peptides.
We make them.
We make them. What, if you were to identify maybe 3 of the major causes that deplete peptides, could you have an answer for that? Or what are the things that deplete it? Age. So naturally we're going to lose it, just like melatonin and different things.
Just like all the things. You're just going to make fewer of them as you go. And also, being sick is going to add load to the body. So, in a perfect world, the human body to me, I find, is this interesting dichotomy because on the one hand, we get old, we get sick, we get decrepit, things start to go downhill and things we don't repair as well. On the other hand, if you really think about it, we are repairing every minute of every hour of every day. Even sick people. If we think about even someone who's really, really sick, if you think about the number of chemical reactions that are happening in their body at a cellular level to keep them breathing and functioning, and even in an impaired state, it's amazing.
It is.
It's a miracle. And so for these peptides to be able to tap into them and bring them back into the body and reapply them once we become, less able to make them, let's say, is an amazing thing, because what you're really doing, and the reason why I've always been so fascinated about peptides, is that they originate in the body and they are not doing anything for us. what they're doing is they're enabling our body to do what it does. And there has never been, to this day, there's no machine that matches the human body in its ability and capacity to heal and to repair.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can figure out ways to reignite that ability of the body to repair itself, we're in a pretty good place.
Yeah, you're right. The human body is impeccable. It really, and if you think about all the hits we take with all the damage we do, environmental toxins, smoking, seed oils, I mean, and we're still walking around, the body's still doing what it needs to do. I'm always surprised that we're not just dropping dead. Like, I don't want that, of course, but I'm always shocked with all the things we do to the body that we're not just dropping dead every single day. So what I'm hearing is that these peptides, we produce them, we naturally lose them as we age. Other factors could accelerate that loss.
Mm-hmm.
But it's giving the body, it's giving the innate intelligence, it's giving our cells these building blocks and assist to just function the way that we were designed to function.
Basically, yeah. I mean, in the case of the bioregulator, the signal that's being sent is it's this signal on the DNA that says, oh, we need to produce proteins. And what those proteins do is they rejuvenate the tissue or organ or gland at a cellular level, right? In the case of a BPC 157 or a thymosin beta 4, now it's a little bit more complex because what's happening is, and there's multiple ways that this happens, is that the body's getting a signal to upregulate the production, let's say maybe of collagen or elastin, or with BPC 157. Like, what's crazy about that peptide and BPC, just because people tell me, oh yeah, that's CBP or that PBC, to keep the letters straight, it's body protective compound. Those are the initial, that's what the initials stand for. And the reason it was called that is because like I call it the Swiss Army knife of peptide world, right? Because there's virtually no system in the body that it doesn't benefit in some way from BPC 157. So it can help with healing musculoskeletal injuries. It can help with, it is magic for healing any part of the GI tract. It is incredible for stimulating wound healing, for burns. It's got applications for the eyes. It has applications for the heart, for the cardiovascular system, for the brain.
This one peptide.
This one compound.
Does all of this.
This one little tiny
BPC.
peptide. Yeah, BPC 157.
Huh.
Yeah, and 157, I believe, designates number 1 to number 57. So it's a fragment of a naturally occurring peptide that actually is naturally occurring in the gut.
How are you taking peptides? I know there's different ways to do it. If you could explain to the keto campers listening, what are the ways to consume or to use peptides?
So that's a great question, and it's changing, right? So typically, the most efficient way to take a peptide, basically to get the most bang for your buck, is by subcutaneous injection. So a subcutaneous injection, and in keto camp, I'm sure you have a lot of people who are familiar with the insulin injections that diabetics will use. So guess what? We all know a peptide very well, which is insulin, right? But a subcutaneous injection is an injection in the layer of fat right underneath the skin. So it's with a tiny little insulin needle. And, it is remarkable how powerful these things are, right? I remember once using oxytocin as a peptide because oxytocin can have anabolic effects. So helping to build muscle and bone. It's got all these, we think of oxytocin as the love hormone. We think of oxytocin for pregnant women who are going into labor. Maybe they'll give them a lot of oxytocin to push labor. But oxytocin actually has lots of other benefits. And so I was using it, but when you're using oxytocin in this setting, you're using like an infinitesimally small amount, like 75 micrograms.
That's
like
very small.
Itty bitty. But guess what? You would apply the 75 micrograms, let's say, to the belly fat. Inside of a minute, you would start to flush. You would start to feel pressure in your ears. Your head would feel kind of funny. Like, that was the one time that when I used that for the first time and I experienced that inside of a minute, it was like, how is it that I could apply a drop of liquid into the fat of my belly and elicit that kind of response?
Super cool.
Like, it's really cool, and it invites you to take a minute to pause. Like, these are powerful. So one thing I think that is important for people to realize is these are endogenous to the human body. They're incredibly powerful. So we have to be respectful. We know a lot about them, but there's a lot we don't know. So very often people will come up to me and say, well, what peptide should I be using? I don't know. What's going on? Like, what do you have going on? And particularly in the case of the BPC 157s, the thymosin beta 4s, those guys, I wouldn't just use them willy-nilly. And I know that there's people who will say, well, you could for 8 to 12 weeks, a couple of times a year, just use them for general maintenance and repair. And there's an argument for that. But I do think that people need to be mindful to know that we don't know everything. So we each have to do our risk reward, and different people have different tolerances. They have different feelings and thoughts about this. I think it's really important to be informed. I think it's really important to do your due diligence and, do some reading, watch some podcasts, talk to a physician. The landscape for peptides is getting tricky, as you know. The FDA came out a couple of months ago basically saying that it's not okay for compounding pharmacies to be making these peptides anymore, which is where most people were getting them from, who are getting them through a physician, and under the auspice that we don't have enough research, which is unfortunate because certainly in the case of people with certain tough health conditions, peptides have made a massive positive impact on their health. And it would be sad to see them go the way of.
It would be. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Hey, Keto Camper, I want to interrupt the video real quick to share with you what I believe is one of the most important nutrients that we should be taking every single day. Most people are deficient in this nutrient, and it's responsible for over 400 enzymatic activities in your body. And your body just doesn't make it. So it's required to be taken in a high quality supplement or from high quality foods. The problem with the food is that our soil is depleted and it's hard to get this quality nutrient. So what is this nutrient? It's called magnesium. But I'm going to share something with you very fascinating. Check this out. Upgraded Formulas has this incredible product called Upgraded Magnesium. And Barton Scott, the developer of this product and company, he's a brilliant guy. He created nanoparticle magnesium, which has the ability to penetrate your membranes and go right into your cells. There's a 99.99% absorption rate. Now, this is unheard of because with other magnesium products, you better believe it's not that high. And there's an interesting study they're doing with Upgraded Mag I want to share with you real quick. Early results from a sleep study with Dr. Sachin Patel showed that the average doctor in the group using this product has achieved an improvement of over 35% in deep sleep. More sleep studies and a double-blind controlled placebo study with upgraded magnesium is coming soon. And you better believe those results are going to be super exciting. We already know this. Upgraded magnesium is easily the best supplement you can take for better sleep, including deep sleep, muscle aches, cramping, and any other signs of a magnesium deficiency, which is so common, unfortunately. What makes Upgraded Formulas unique, as I mentioned, is that it's a nanoparticle. This means it is absorbed very rapidly and efficiently by your blood cells. They produce a plasma-like version of minerals that the body recognizes and absorbs without digestion. And the results are phenomenal. I really believe just taking this for a couple of nights, you'll notice a big difference. So if you want to get Upgraded Formulas, Upgraded Mag, and any of their products, they also do some incredible hair mineral analysis tests to see your mineral imbalances and deficiencies, etc., and other incredible products that we've referenced before. Head over to upgradedformulas.com and use the coupon code 𝘎𝑗𝑠𝑖S to get 15% off your entire order. That is upgradedformulas.com. Coupon code is 𝘎𝑗𝑠𝑖S to get 15% off your entire order. I'm going to drop a link for you down below in the notes of this video. Okay, let's go back to this video. So what I'm hearing is that there's a right way to do it. It's targeted. You got to do your research, work with somebody who understands how to use this. The body produces it endogenously. There's ways to take it exogenously. One of them is through a needle, subcutaneous.
Right.
And then what are the other methods?
Thank you for bringing me back there. Sorry, I got lost on my own
It's
little
all
path
good.
there.
We love it.
So other ways, other than subcutaneous injection, and it does depend on the peptide. So BPC 157 can be applied as eye drops. It can be applied as an intranasal spray. It can be applied as a subcutaneous injection. It can be taken as a capsule. Like it's
suppository as well.
Suppository as well. Like there's as an ointment, like for burns or for wounds. It can be used almost in any way you can imagine.
But in terms of the effectiveness, it'll vary on that delivery system.
So different delivery systems are going to be better for different applications.
Yes.
Right. So obviously for the eyes. Now for the eyes, just to be clear, you don't want to run out and get yourself some BPC 157 and just drop it into your eye. For the eyes, they have to be formulated by a compounding pharmacist who knows what they're doing in making ophthalmic drops. But for the intranasal spray, for example, we know that it's going to, first of all, it's going to get into the bloodstream pretty fast. It's also going to hit the brain, right? So we need, and there's benefits to that for many people. There are a few people that don't respond that well to BPC 157 cognitively. Which is weird, because if you read the research, it's got benefits even for preventing TBIs in animal research, right? And it has benefits for people who are suffering from TBIs. It has benefits for, so I talked about wounds, I talked about burns, the gut healing. I mean, it's also organoprotective. It protects organs. So that's going to be your subcutaneous administration is going to be the most wide-ranging benefit.
Right.
It's also going to take care of the musculoskeletal most easily. Having said that, with the oral BPC 157 that many people will use if they have gut issues, it is not uncommon for someone to have been taking BPC 157 orally and wake up one morning and go, oh wait, that knee pain seems to be gone, or my back pain seems to be gone. So because it has anti-inflammatory effects, because it has some analgesic effects, because it stimulates the body to heal, right? It acts on the body's healing mechanisms. You can get healing in different areas from even the wrong application for the thing that you're dealing with.
Fascinating.
But, and even the subcutaneous injection will be helpful. It can be very helpful for the gut.
This is fascinating. What are there any foods we could eat that also have peptides in them?
So not so much on that front. On the bioregulator front, I believe yes. On the bioregulator front, so let's go back to the bioregulators a bit. There are 21 bioregulators that are commercially available. There are more out there.
Which is the most popular one?
So the one that I think has really bubbled up into the mainstream, and as a matter of fact, it made the unfortunate FDA list.
Oh, did it? Yeah.
Is Epitelon, which is the pineal gland bioregulator.
That's the one. Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
That's the one they picked, right? They're like, that one. And I mean, to be fair, that's the one that gets talked about the most. The best well-known one would be Epitelon. But basically, there's these 21 bioregulators, and they each correspond to a different tissue, gland, or organ. So we have a bioregulator for the heart. We have a bioregulator for blood vessels, muscles, kidneys, pancreas, stomach, adrenal glands, thyroid gland, central nervous system. I don't think I'm going to get all 21.
I was impressed that you got that far. That's really cool, though.
There's bone marrow. I said muscle.
What about nerves? Anything from nerves?
So that's the central nervous system one.
Okay, that's part of that. Okay.
That's part of that. So because there's and again, the nomenclature here is also, it's like going to IKEA. It's a nightmare. Every bioregulator has at least 3 names, and none of them make any sense.
Who came up with all this? Is it the Russian guy?
It's the Russian guy.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if he was responsible for naming them. But there's pinealon and Epitelon, and which causes no end of confusion, because you would think that pinealon would be the pineal gland bioregulator, but it's not. It's the central nervous system bioregulator. Now, it does have an effect on the pineal gland.
Oh, interesting.
It does.
Pinealon is what it's called.
Yeah, and then we have Epitelon, but Epitelon is also called endolutin. So it depends on the form that it comes in. Endolutin is the trademark name for the capsules. There's epithalamin, which is a different preparation that's been extracted from actual pineal glands, but can be injected intramuscularly. That form is very hard to get your hands on outside of Russia. And then we've got the Epitelon, which is the synthetic form of the bioregulator that is administered either by subcutaneous injection, or it can be used as an oral spray under the tongue. Oh. Right? Again, because it's so teeny tiny. There's even guys that are formulating it in transdermal drops. I'm a little old school. I'm kind of D for doubtful on that one, but
D for doubtful. This Pinealeon, is that how you say it? Pinealeon?
Pinealeon.
Yeah.
That's how look, let's just be clear. I speak English as a second language. I make up pronunciations all the time.
The one for the nervous system, with my peripheral neuropathy, that's getting better, by the way. Is that something
that's
that...
right. You're walking perfectly.
Yeah, it's much, much better. The drop foot is gone. But it's still slightly numb, so it's getting better. But would that be something that I could potentially take for my neuropathy? Or
You could. I don't think of bioregulators really for those types of applications. Okay. I think for neuropathy, you might look at something like BPC 157 and thymosin beta 4 on the other side, because they can actually help with the myelin sheath.
Interesting.
And what actually would be really interesting, I don't know if you've looked into it, is plasmalogens.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so plasmalogens are really interesting. That's the work of Dr. 𝘎𝙬𝙊𝙃𝘆. And he's shown that plasmalogens, which are a particular type of phospholipid that he discovered, there's 2 different kinds that he markets, and one of them actually helps to rebuild white matter, and the other one helps to rebuild gray matter.
That's cool.
It's super cool.
Okay, I'm putting that in my notes to look up.
Yeah. So, but that's not a peptide. But that's a super. So, but you know what? That brings up a really good point, right? So people hear about peptides. I heard about peptides, and I was like, oh my God, these are magic.
Yeah, the anti-aging, yes, please.
And they turn back the clock, and we'll talk a little bit about why they have this anti-aging aura around them. But they can't do it all by themselves. We still need the other stuff, right? You still need to do all the other work. You still need to clean up your diet, become metabolically flexible. You still need to practice vitamin G.
Yes.
You still need the plasmalogens,
vitamin
the
J.
phospholipids, vitamin J, exactly.
Which is vitamin joy. Nat has coined that.
Well, it's really off here.
I love it.
I'm still giving it to you. But because in that better environment, think about it. The peptides are the work, like they're the Uber work crews coming in to do the work. You can send the best work crew into a house. If they don't have tools and materials, they're not going to be able to do much.
Great analogy.
If the house is running rampant with mold or vermin or whatever,
only so much they can do.
There's only so much they can do. So we need to always remember, and this is where I think people really get into trouble also with particularly the longer chain peptides. I'm gonna fork again, but first I'm gonna finish the one thing, and that is that we need to remember that we need to still do the work to clear the way, to clear the terrain, and we as people, we want to find the solution, we want to find the pill, we want to find the fix, so we tend to add. We're looking for things to add, and the thing that we tend to forget too often is, what do we need to remove first?
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
How do we clear that terrain? And I know Dr. Pompa, who's your mentor and you work very closely with, he talks about this all the time. Like, you could be doing everything right. If you've got an infection sitting in your jaw, if you've got some kind of bug that's running rampant in your system, it's almost like, think of it as it's a distraction for your body. Like, your body's kind of looking over there going, we got to deal with this. Like, yeah, this is all really great, but we got to deal with that. So making sure that we always remember that these are very powerful and they can enlist our body. Like, for example, thymosin beta 4, there's another one called thymosin alpha 1. These are thymus gland peptides. So your thymus gland sits in the middle of your chest, and it's really the seat of your immune system. So both these peptides come from that thymus gland that starts to involute when we're, around early 30s, late 20s. Some people might say even earlier than that. And so now what we're doing is we're able to reapply a protein from the thymus gland to get that immune system working again.
That's cool.
Right? So, and this is where I think the big disappointment is on the FDA slamming on the brakes like this, is people with autoimmune conditions, people with all kinds of, Epstein-Barr virus or Lyme. Like, the Lyme community would be devastated to lose access to the peptides. And I gather the FDA ruling is not super cut and dried. There's a lot of people pushing back. There's a lot of physicians really looking for ways, creative ways to continue to provide access to their patients. But thymosin alpha-1 and thymosin beta-4 were pulled off the market by the FDA a couple of years ago.
Oh, that happened a couple of years ago?
Thymosin alpha-1 was during the pandemic.
During the pandemic that happened, yeah.
And that happened during the pandemic. And what's unfortunate about that one, it has orphan drug status in the US, but only for Hep B and C. But what was really unfortunate is there was some really interesting use case scenarios in hospitals with people suffering from the pandemic bug.
That would make sense.
And it totally changed the game.
I mean, that makes sense. The thymus, that makes total sense with the immune system. You know, are there any, when we take hormones, for example, there's a negative feedback loop for most hormones, right? You take testosterone over time, your body starts producing less of it endogenously. Most hormones do this. There's some exceptions like melatonin, and I think oxytocin might be another exception there. So how does that relate to taking peptides? It's different than a hormone.
Yeah.
But is there a scenario where if we're constantly taking all these peptides, the body starts to get the signal that you're getting it so much exogenously, I don't need to produce this as much, or does that not happen because there's a different sort of flow here with peptides versus hormones?
Right. So, no, not really.
Meaning it doesn't happen.
It doesn't particularly happen. What can happen and it depends on the peptide. Like there's, the words "it depends" are the dreaded words that Nat says to almost everything. Right? People ask me questions in my community. I'm like, it depends.
Very politically correct, Nat.
And it depends. And it kind of depends. And it really depends.
I get it. No, I get it.
Depends.
It makes sense.
But I will say that for most peptides, we don't worry about that. For example, growth hormone. If you take exogenous growth hormone, which is very expensive and hard to get, you need a prescription, and you got to be careful, because if you take growth hormone from the outside, there is a negative feedback loop here, and your body's going to be like, okay, we don't need to make this stuff anymore, right? There are peptides. There's a class of peptides called growth hormone secretagogues that will induce your body to produce and release more of your own growth hormone. What's interesting about those peptides is because what they're doing is signaling the brain, hey, we need more growth hormone, make more of your own, you don't get that negative feedback loop. It's not nearly as powerful as taking exogenous growth hormone. Like for example, for kids who have growth issues and their pediatrician decides they need growth hormone supplementation, the growth hormone secretagogues really aren't going to do it for them. But it's not going to shut down your own growth hormone production. The concern that can come up a bit with the peptides is that the receptors might get numb. They may involute. So we talk about cycling peptides, and we talk about taking breaks, and we talk about not overdoing it, right? The growth hormone secretagogues in particular, you want to be smart. You want to have an eye on your IGF-1 levels, which is imperfect, but still the best analog we have of how much growth hormone you may have in your system. And you might do a run of one of these growth hormone secretagogues for, let's say, 8 weeks or 12 weeks. You're going to want to retest that IGF-1 level to make sure that it hasn't gone way too far off the charts.
That's a good tip. That's interesting. I haven't heard about that. If you're following a low carbohydrate, keto diet, or carnivore diet, this is one of the most important tips. I see a lot of people who struggle with keto and carnivore, and the reason they struggle is because they are losing too many electrolytes. They're becoming mineral depleted. Every cell in your body needs minerals to function, to produce energy, which helps you burn fat and feel good. My favorite minerals and electrolytes are from Beam Minerals. These are fulvic and humic compounds that are bioavailable, that have over 70 minerals in them. It tastes like water. And all you do is simply drink from the bottle every single day to replenish your electrolytes. They also have sprays that you could put directly on a muscle cramp, a foot cramp, and it alleviates the cramping. And this is what I take with me to go, which is a mineral complex that I could travel with. And it's been shown that when you take the right minerals and electrolytes, you're going to support your immune system, lower inflammation, help detoxify the body,
These are plant-based, but they're carnivore friendly. Let me explain why. There are no anti-nutrients in them. It does not break a fast. As a matter of fact, it could support your fasting window, and it's been a game changer for my health, and I recommend it to all my students. So if you want to get your hands on some bean minerals, head over to beanminerals.com. Use the coupon code AZADI at checkout, my last name, AZADI at checkout, to get a nice discount. Beanminerals.com, coupon code is AZADI.
Anti-aging. Let's talk about that as it relates to peptides. What's the, I mean, you already made the case why it would help with anti-aging, because we are losing this naturally. If we could get that back in the body, it's only going to help. But are there any specific ones you like in regards to anti-aging, maybe protection of the telomeres and the DNA?
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple, well, there's the whole class of bioregulator peptides. That's their hallmark, right? Is this whole age reversal. They're as a matter of fact, Kavan-Zinn will use the term geroprotective, right? So they also have some of them have anti-tumor properties. And one of the things about aging is we need to, number one, age well, but we need to avoid a lot of those diseases of aging that are defined by aging, right? Like cancer and whatnot. So some of them are anti-tumor. For example, Epigenetic, the pineal gland bioregulator, has anti-tumor properties. He's done animal studies to show that. The human studies never really came about, as far as I know. There's also another peptide called 𝘎𝙬𝘼𝘾 copper. This is the copper peptide. It's an interesting peptide because it's only 3 amino acids. So technically, you would think it's a bioregulator.
Right.
I have heard noise, and I don't know if this is true, that, Kavan-Zinn's been heard kind of grumbling, going, kind of wish I would have found that one because it would be in my bioregulator family. But it was discovered in the 70s by Dr. Lauren Pickart. And it's really interesting peptide because, I mean, they're all interesting, but this one in particular activates over 4,000 genes.
Wow.
Like, it's nuts. And I'm pretty sure the number, I mean, I used to say 4,000, then I went to saying 1,000. Whatever it is,
still pretty cool.
It activates a bajillion genes, and some of the things that it can do, some of the applications it has are mind-blowing. So it's the skin peptide is what people think of it most, right? So it is transdermally bioavailable. Although I would say that in my case, I've been using it for quite a long time. I use a 𝘎𝙬𝘾 serum. I've seen more benefit for my skin since I started microneedling with it. Once every couple of weeks.
Makes sense.
Right? Because you're getting it past the stratus corneum. I mean, your skin is built to keep stuff out. Having said that, 𝘎𝙬𝘾 copper is only 3 amino acids. Like, let's not forget. Having said that, when 𝘎𝙬𝘾 copper, which is naturally occurring in the human body, and we know that our blood serum levels start to drop after age 40, let's say, one of the things it does is it upregulates the production of collagen and elastin. Another thing that it does is it helps to reduce scarring in wound healing because it helps to realign the filaments. Another thing that it does is even has apparently anxiolytic benefits, so anti-anxiety. It's another one of these peptides. Like, I always talk about BPC 157 as being the Swiss Army knife. I suspect that 𝘎𝑗𝑐U even goes beyond that.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Well, if it targets 1,000 to 4,000, you said epigenetic switches? Is that what you said? Or?
Well, it affects all these genes. So it basically flips genes back on to their more youthful settings.
That's super cool.
Right? Now, Epigenetic, you mentioned telomeres a minute ago, the pineal gland bioregulator, its main hallmarks of action that it does, and it does a lot more than this, but the things that really get people's attention is that in elderly people, it normalizes melatonin production. So imagine if you're in your 70s, all of us who know older people know that they start to sleep really, sleep kind of goes the way of the dodo bird, which is a problem because we need sleep to rejuvenate and repair overnight. And so if you're not going to sleep, now you're kind of accelerating this aging process because your body can't repair itself. So by normalizing melatonin levels, it helps with sleep. Not to mention the fact that melatonin, we know, is for a lot more than sleep. It's one of the most powerful antioxidants in the body. It has anti-cancer properties. Right?
So that's the connection with the mitochondria right there.
100%. But it also affects mitochondrial respiration positively. It also activates an enzyme called telomerase, which helps to maintain and restore the length of telomeres. on the ends
which
of your
in
DNA.
turn protects the DNA from getting damaged. This is super cool. What the good news for those who do keto and carnivore and eat a lot of organ meat, there's some good news for them. What's that good news?
The good news is that where those bioregulators are sourced from when they're given to people as a supplement or as an injection is they are sourced from the organs of animals. So when you're eating organ meat, and I've been saying this all along, I'm like, and this kind of came to me in a eureka moment early in the game. It was like, oh my God, that means there's that ancestral wisdom. There's that ancestral wisdom of somebody with a heart problem, feed them heart. Someone who's got a liver problem, feed them liver. Somebody like, and you know, if you go back into ancestral societies, this is what they did. And they ate all the bits and bobs of the animals that the rest of us are like, oh, I couldn't possibly do that.
They valued it.
It was the best part, right? The muscle meat was like,
if there's nothing
eat it
else.
to the dogs. If there's nothing else, I guess we'll fill up on that stuff.
Correct.
Right? The bone marrow was gold. That's where, and I mean, I personally am a big fan of bone marrow.
Me too.
Like, people fall into two camps in the world.
Yeah. No, I love bone marrow.
Whenever I'm out for dinner with people who don't like bone marrow, I'm like, no problem, bring it.
Well, we just went to dinner. You saw I was on carnivore.
Yeah,
I did my 90 days. I'm done.
They had no bone marrow at that
They
restaurant.
did not have bone marrow. That was more of like, was it you who told me I almost got a mushroom burger? Or somebody.
No, it wasn't me. It was
Karen.
I think it was Karen.
Yeah. I thought it was like, I was like, I'll get the mushroom burger, but no mushrooms. And you're like, that's a burger made out of mushrooms. It's not an actual burger. I'm like,
Well,
oh.
the waitress was kind of getting this look on her face going, what?
I'm like, oh, no, I don't want that.
I want the beef burger.
I want the
Pull
beef.
the mushrooms.
Exactly. So organ meat, you could supplement with it. You could eat it.
You can use them. Look, there are, what are the names of the companies? There's Heart and Soil.
Yeah. Paleo Valley
Ancestral
is my
supplements,
go-to. Yeah.
Paleo Valley.
MK Ultra, I think they're called.
And there's even a couple of professional brands of supplements that sell desiccated organs.
Yeah.
And desiccated look, desiccated thyroid, desiccated adrenal gland, right? We feed this, we get these as supplements. There's going to be bioregulator in there. Now there's also going to be other stuff. When they make the bioregulator peptides, and particularly any of the bioregulator peptides, and maybe this is a good time to make this distinction for your audience, and that is that when we take the capsules of the bioregulators, they've extracted they've isolated and extracted the bioregulator peptide, but you're still getting some cofactors with that. Not as much as, let's say, if you're taking desiccated thyroid. And here's the distinction between how these work. Desiccated thyroid, you're typically not going to give that to someone who's hyperthyroid, right? Because it's going to drive their thyroid into overdrive. The thyroid bioregulator can be used for someone who's either hyperthyroid or hypothyroid.
Interesting.
The hallmark of the bioregulator is it's seeking to restore homeostasis. It's trying to bring you back into balance. So it's a bit more, it's like a more processed food, if you will, but it's much less tricky to use for that reason. When we go to the injectable bioregulator, what's happened there is, or the synthetic, which can also be used as sublingual drops, is that what's happened there is they've identified that 2 to 4 amino acid chain. Sometimes there's more than one. And they've reproduced it. They've recreated, resynthesized it, if you will, in a lab. And now all you're getting is that little amino acid chain. So one of the things that they talk about in the literature is for people who are hypersensitive or who are very, very ill, they will often use the synthetic bioregulator first because it's faster acting and it's a cleaner hit, if you will. Whereas the oral bioregulators, they'll send people home with them and you'll use those over time in a different way.
So the bioregulators act similar to like adaptogenic mushrooms, where if you need to increase your energy, it'll do that. If you actually need to decrease and relax, it'll do that too. It depends on whatever the innate intelligence needs at that time. It starts to use that.
Yeah.
Very fascinating. Where does my audience get these peptides? I know you said to be really smart about it, but are there any resources they could dive deep into? You've got a lot of good resources, so share that with my audience.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if you want to access my stuff, I've recorded and done a number of interviews on peptides and bioregulators on the Biohacking Superhuman Performance podcast. So that's one resource to start with. I've got a Facebook community that's become kind of this crazy place called Optimizing Superhuman Performance, and it's a busy group. And then so for people who want a more intimate approach and a more calm environment, I've started a community on Mighty Networks, which is a paid community called the BSP community. And the best way to find out about that is on my website, which is natniddam.com. There's a tab at the top of the page that says BSP community, and you can kind of find out about that. And so in that community, I have a peptide crash course that I share with annual members. So anybody who joins as an annual member gets that included for free. And we do live Q&As and that kind of stuff. But in terms of where to buy your bioregulators and your peptides from, it's a bit of a slippery slope right now. The bioregulators it would be really easy except for the war between Russia and the Ukraine, which has made a bit of a mess of the supply chain. So my favorite provider for the bioregulators actually works very closely with Dr. Cavinson, and it's a company in the UK called Profound Health. And maybe what we'll do is we'll just put this all in the show notes.
We'll put it all in the notes. I'm going to take this note for myself, though.
And then there's another...
Profound Health, you said?
Yeah, Profound Health. And if you go to my website, if you go to the Nat Recommends page, under supplements, you'll find those links and also discount codes that will help you to save a little bit of money. Profound Health, I think right now they're still a little choppy on their supply. By the beginning of February, I think they're going to have it all sorted out. Fingers crossed. There's another company who's actually I think he's out of Russia. I don't know if he's out of Russia where he is, but he has a warehouse in the US, and he's figured out another way to bring them in, and that's 𝘎𝙊𝙃𝙊𝙃𝙊𝙃. And we have a discount code for them as well on the Nat Recommends page. And then for the synthetic peptides, like the longer chain peptides, there's a couple of the big research labs that I really trust and will use. Again, guys, like you're now moving into gray zone.
Yeah.
Like, just so you know, you're moving into the gray zone. This is not approved. I've had this one woman who, and this is actually not funny. There's a peptide called VIP, which can lower blood pressure. And I would say of all the peptides, it is the one next to oxytocin. You have to be super careful. Anyway, she mistook her VIP for her GLP-1 agonist, which is GLP-1 agonist is those peptides that you've all heard about. That's all the rage in the weight loss world right now. And so VIP is one of these peptides you're going to use like maybe 100 micrograms, but her GLP-1 agonist, you would use 2.4 milligrams. She took a megadose of VIP.
Oof.
She passed out no fewer than 4 times.
Oh my gosh.
In the space of 20 minutes. Her husband probably aged, talk about anti-aging, he probably aged 20 years in those 20 minutes. But every time she would come to, she would say to him, "Don't call an ambulance." She'd go out,
my gosh.
"No, don't call the doctor. No, I'll be fine."
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine that?
Because she was herself a health provider. She was like, I don't want to have to explain this to anybody, right? So just know that you're treading on territory that's a little bit dodgy. We now have our regulatory bodies that are stepping up and saying, you know what, we don't think it's safe for everybody to be using this right now. So if you're going to make these decisions for yourself, just own it and be mindful that you got to do your homework, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not 100% sure. So the big labs that I trust, that I use, I trust Peptide Sciences over and above almost anybody else. There's also Limitless Life Nootropics out there, and then there's a Canadian one called CanLab, who they've been a little offline for the last few months, but they're kind of doing a reorg and figuring their stuff out. And then there's one thing I will say to you guys is be cautious, because there are new peptide suppliers popping up like mushrooms every minute of every hour of every day. And there's some good guys out there, and there are a lot of bad actors that are just sourcing whatever they can from overseas. They're bringing it over. They're not testing it. And you want to talk about a blind item, like you don't know if what you're getting is what it says on the vial. You don't know how much you're getting. And worse, more dangerously to me than getting 7 milligrams instead of 10 milligrams is getting something that has impurities in it, or God forbid, like I keep hearing from people, oh, but I just go to Alibaba and I can get like 20 milligrams of BPC 157 for $5. And I'm like, you are putting this into your body.
Yeah, this is your health.
Like,
you want to do your due diligence.
When I first got into this, I had a really good friend. Like, we started my group actually together, and he's now gone off and done his own group. And he got his hands on the Alibaba $5 for, whatever, BPC 157. And we both got it. And it was one of those where we're sitting there and I'm like, okay, you go first. And so he did. He was covered in welts inside of 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Right? God knows what was in there. And so guess what happened to all the little vials? They all went into the trash can.
Yeah, of course.
And it was the most powerful lesson for both of us. So shooting for the bottom is not going to be smart. It just isn't. And so it's going to cost you a little bit of money if you're going to do this right. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's important. This is your
critical
health. You want to do your due diligence. So Nat has a wealth of information regarding peptides. She's my go-to research. Obviously, as you can see, I learned so much today. We're going to put her website down below. Go subscribe to her podcast. She has her Mighty Networks membership as well. That is going up in price, that annual you said in February, and this is being released before that. So you might be able to get in at a discounted price. Slide in there. We'll put all that in the notes down below in the YouTube video down below. I want to take a quick break from the video you're watching to share something with you that has made a big difference with my health and the thousands and thousands of students that I teach all across the world. Now, this is a unique device that has been shown to help with skin health, sore muscles, wrinkles, psoriasis, eczema, scoliosis, migraines, sleep issues, arthritis, acne, scar tissue, wound healing, relaxation, and also boost testosterone levels. What am I talking about? What is this miracle drug? Well, it's not a miracle drug. It's red light therapy. As you can see here, this is called photobiomodulation. And I use this red light therapy device every single day. Not only do I use it, my fiance uses it. Our dogs and cats love it. And the device I have here is from Bon Charge. Bon Charge has a different range of big panels, small panels, from affordable to ones that are a little bit more money depending on how much you want. And I love this product. I feel so good. And it doesn't take a lot of time to get all these benefits. I simply take off my glasses, which is Bon Charge glasses, by the way, turn it on, and I have it running for 20 minutes once a day. And turn it on, and as you can see, I just leave it there on my desk as I work. 10, 20 minutes per day will suffice, and it makes a big difference. You're going to notice a big improvement with your skin health and all the things we mentioned earlier in just a matter of weeks. So if you want to get your hands on this Bon Charge red light device or get their big panels, they also have panels that you could take on the go that are more affordable, then head over to boncharge.com/KetoCamp and use the coupon code KetoCamp to get 15% off your red light device, or as a matter of fact, your entire order. Any product, you could get 15% off with that nice coupon code KetoCamp. So whether it's these Bon Charge blue light blocking glasses, their sauna blanket, or any of their awesome products, use that coupon code KetoCamp at checkout. We'll drop a link down below. Go check them out. They're awesome. And let's get back to today's video. I have a final question for you.
Tell me.
You know, it's going to be about vitamin G. Vitamin gratitude, Nat,
Yes.
Which you also talk about, vitamin J, vitamin joy. What are you most grateful for at this moment?
At this moment?
At this moment.
Sitting here with you. Are you kidding me? This is having met you and actually connected. I mean, you talked about how we first met in August of 2022 or 2020, whenever it was. We didn't really fully connect. I felt
No,
like
we were at the
didn't really
table
talk.
together,
We were at
but
the
we didn't
table.
have
I
our
kinda
personal
saw-
conversations.
We didn't have
Yeah.
personal, but it was this past event in Sarasota in December, having the opportunity to connect with you and understand who you are as a person. I am so grateful for that. I think you're awesome. I love your work.
you.
I love what you do. I can't wait to host you on my podcast.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun.
And I also, in addition to that, if we want to get bigger about it, I'm really grateful. I mean, as complicated as the world is right now, we're also at a very exciting time. There's a lot of amazing stuff going on in the health space. And so I think that if we can hopefully manage, I don't know. I don't know what we have to manage. I think with the authorities kind of getting their fingers in the pie, it can get a little complicated. But I still think that regenerative medicine, this peptide space. There's so much amazing stuff out there that can help people to live healthier lives. And so if you take your dose of vitamin G and vitamin J in the morning, and you can get yourself into that proper headspace.
Yeah.
And then these are the condiments, you guys, right? The foundation is your state of being and your mindset. And then everything else is added onto that.
Well said. That's exactly it. Control what you can control. There's always crazy stuff happening in the world. Who knows what's going to happen? This is the first podcast of 2024 that I did. I'm grateful that it was you to kickstart the new year with me.
I'm honored.
On the Keto Camp podcast. And you're right. I had a great time with you in Sarasota, hanging out with Danny and Karen. Danny was here a few weeks ago. We recorded a podcast, and it was so cool spending quality time with you and Danny and Karen. It was an amazing time in Sarasota. I love what you're doing. You've just got a big heart. Your family's not too far from me here in Boca. And I'm grateful for the conversation. So if you learned a lot today, which I'm sure you did, check out Nat's resources down below. Share this with a friend. You now are equipped with amazing information as it pertains to peptides. Use it wisely. It's a very powerful resource. Use it wisely. And we'll see you in the next one. So thank you so much, Nat, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ben.